Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to another episode of Field Notes, the weekly podcast from Business Line on all things agribusiness. I'm your host, TR Vivek. The subject that we're discussing today will seem gross to almost all of you listening. A Bangalore-based startup called Loopworm, started by two IIT Roorkee graduates, is working to bring food waste back into the food cycle using biotechnology. Its co-founder, Ankit Bagadia, says Loopworm's mission is to solve the global deficiency and waste generation. Loopworm is into protein farming, but don't think pulses or dairy or meat. It farms an insect called the black soldier fly, whose larvae can become a high source of protein for commercially farmed fish, shrimp, or poultry. And it can even be used as pet food for dogs and cats. Currently, the feed for poultry and fish consists of fish meal, usually made from mackerel or sardine. Lupum says that this is the most sustainable and eco-friendly way to feed the animals that we eat. The black soldier fly is a sleek looking insect that many confuse with wasps. It is not a pest and can be put to use for human purposes. They play a similar role to red worms as a valuable decomposer in breaking down organic substrates and returning nutrients back to the soil. They can break down the bacteria in their food. They're so efficient that there's no bacteria in the waste that they generate once they've digested their food. Today, we have with us Ankit Bagadia to discuss this curious and I suspect somewhat smelly business. Welcome to Field Notes, Ankit.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Vivek.
Ankit, tell us why, after receiving an education in chemical engineering from one of India's most coveted institutes, did you and your partner decide to become insect farmers of all things?
So I like the term, the way you call us insect farmers. The journey started back in 2017-18 when we started working on 3 different waste management projects as a part of the Enactus chapter at IIT Roorkee. So Enactus is a global organization, the acronym for which of Entrepreneurial Action for Us. And Entrepreneurial Action for Us, Enactus, basically promotes university students towards social entrepreneurship. I decided to start the university chapter at IIT Roorkee. So I was the founder there. And like Abhi was one of those people, he was an year junior to me at that point of time. We passed out the same year because I was in a dual degree course, who connected over 3 things. We connected over social entrepreneurship, we connected over waste management, and we connected over the fact that we believe that entrepreneurship comes by doing it, not by watching videos, not by reading books, not by reading articles or following great people. It comes by doing it. So that was our motivation to start these projects. And once we got into these waste management projects, we came across a very serious fact stating 50% of the waste that we have in India and almost all the developing and underdeveloped countries in the world is food waste. And there is no other way to actually convert food waste into a better resource, either by composting or by biogas generation, which actually downcycles the product. There are serious challenges to the conventional ways we are dealing with food waste. Both of these technologies are...
Ankit, what is, for the benefit of viewers, what is downcycling? What is upcycling?
Downcycling is when you reduce the value of the product, either economically or like from an environment standpoint, from where it is situated today. Consider the food example. So we have put in a lot of arable land or say soil nutrition. We have put in a lot of potable water, a lot of chemicals, pesticides, maybe biological in nature. And also a lot of transportation fuel has gone into the transportation of these food products. Now, once it gets wasted, we are wasting all of these resources as well, which we are facing a crunch of. So if we are not converting or say bringing the food back into the food chain, like we do with almost all recyclables. So plastic gets converted again into plastic, paper gets converted again into paper, aluminium gets 100% recycled. Same goes for glass. Why not bring food waste back into the food chain as well? So like if you convert food waste into food again, that's upcycling. If you convert it into, say, a lower value product, then it is downcycling.
Right. So what does Loopworm do, and how do you farm insects, and why is this even a business?
So, like animal agriculture or animal used for giving us food, especially for meat purposes, right, require a lot of protein and fats for their growth as well. It's obvious, right? Now, these proteins are derived either from soya bean, which requires a lot of arable land and water, and and also can be done through fish meal. Fish meal is marine forage fish, which is crushed and defatted. So both fish meal and soya meal are actually making the animals compete with humans here, because the same potable water and land can be used to grow food directly for us. The same fish which is being converted into fish meal for farmed fish, so it's like a fish in fish out kind of technology, can be used directly for consumption of humans. Now, that being said, we need to find solutions which are alternatives in terms of sustainable production, not just environment friendly, which is economical in nature and which could be generated in volumes. And that's where the concept of insect protein comes into play. Like, insects are the natural food for fish and birds. No chicken was meant to eat soya bean in the first place. It was basically for our convenience that we started that practice, that we are feeding them soya bean and maize. Insects give them the best nutrition which is out there, which is a lean source of animal-based protein, very high in amino acids and a lot of digestible nutrients. Why is insect protein a business? Because there are two major problems that we are trying to solve. The first I already discussed, which is like the creation of a sustainable food system through a sustainable alternative protein. The second is we are having tons and tons of food waste, not just post-consumer food waste, which is often coined as food waste, but also a lot of food industry byproducts and agro-industry byproducts, which are out there ready to be used to convert into something superior.
What are these industrial processed food wastes that you're talking about?
So our hypothesis is that any industry which produces a liquid as its product would have a lot of solids as its byproduct. I'll take examples. Consider the brewery or the distillery industry, making beer and making whiskey. So you do it with the help of wheat or barley. Now, once the beer or the whiskey is made, a lot of spent grains are left out, which has nutrition left in it, but we have to actually use it in a proper manner so that we can actually extract those resources. Similarly, you can consider the starch industry, the oil industry. So these are the food industry byproducts that I'm talking about. Now you can consider manufacturing rejects as well. Consider dairy industry. India is huge on dairy. The shelf life of almost all of these dairy products is very less. The shelf life of bread is very less. So we have tons and tons of expired products from these segments. Also, if you consider the agro industry, right? Consider cassava or tapioca, which is used to make sabudana in India. Right. It has a waste called thippi. Mm-hmm. So thippi can be used. Cassava is derived from the base tubers of the plant. So the entire plant is getting wasted. It's very similar to potato, where the entire plant is not usable, only the base tubers are usable. Same goes for banana stems. So India produces close to 30 million tons of banana fruit annually, and banana fruit to banana stem waste is a 1:10 ratio. So right. You have millions of tons of banana stem waste out there in India itself. I'm not talking about the world here.
So how do you, yes, we have, gazillions of tons of food waste. So how do you use them to farm the insects?
So our process starts with the procurement of these byproducts. Why we have picked pre-consumer food waste or rejects or all of these agro-industry is the sheer volume that it offers. We can procure it from a single source. So logistics is not that challenging. It is available year round. So once we have procured these raw materials, it goes through a proprietary process of pre-treatment where we use thermal, biological, and even chemical means to pre-treat these food waste or say the raw material. So it is raw material for us. I should not call it food waste. So once we have pre-treated it, it is ready to be fed to the insects. We have an in-house breeding system where we get the insect cultures from. So we are not actually utilizing nature's resources here. We have our own breeding systems. From the breeding systems, we'll get the larvae like baby larvae, which can then grow into, say, the pre-treated food waste. And then they grow almost like 3,000 times in size in a span of 10 to 12 days. They would be half an size when they grow, when they are born, and once they are harvested, they are almost an inch size.
Mm-hmm.
Once we harvest these grown up larvae from the leftover substrate is also useful as an organic supplement to plants. And these larvae can then further be converted again through a proprietary process to a protein powder, which is a concentrate, and the fat oil. So once we have these protein powder and fat oil developed, we normally are a B2B supplier to a lot of pet food manufacturers and animal feed manufacturers. So these ingredients, the protein powder would go to these manufacturers in gunny bags, and the fat oil would go into carboys, or say that the tin cans that you get for the other oils in the industry. And we would be supplying B2B to them.
So how big is the animal protein market in India? And where I spoke about the fish waste being used as fish meal to feed poultry in some cases, but not all, but certainly in commercial fish farming and shrimp farming. So what is the size of the market, and what are our current sources for fish meal?
So the size of the protein and the fats market, which are the major ingredients, right, for any kind of animal feed in India, is close to $15 billion. The reports would vary a bit, but then it would be around the same number. So $15 billion is just the protein and the fats market. And coming to your second question of sources of fish meal. So yes, fish meal can be produced from fish offals or the rejected fish materials as well. But the grade of that fish meal is lesser. So you don't get that superior quality of protein. You would get a higher ash content because it would have all the cartilage and the bone that the fish has. And it decomposes really fast. So what you are doing is animal meat started decomposing in 30 minutes after the offals are exposed to atmosphere. You cannot convert it into fish meal that quick. You would first store it and then make it a batch size so that it is efficient for the process to go on. So you're not getting that quality there. In terms of the fish meal sources, mostly the western coast of India is very active in fish meal production. Mangalore being a very big hub, having a base of all these fish meal producers. So they'll normally go into the Arabian Sea. They'll catch loads and loads of these fish, which are called forage fishes, and then they'll convert it in their factories to fish meal. Then they would supply these fish meal to fish feed producers or shrimp feed producers. In poultry, India doesn't use a lot of fish meal because people in India are a bit picky of that fishy smell in the egg. That is why duck eggs are not that popular in India, whereas they are very popular in Southeast Asia, parts of Europe and America, because people are not that picky about the fishy smell in the egg itself.
Right. Explain to us the economics and say, how does the protein content of it, how does the quality of your feed compare to the traditional feed that we have?
So in terms of the major benefits that we have in comparison to the conventional sources, insects on their exoskeleton or on their outer skin have a product or a biopolymer called chitin, CHITIN. Now, this chitin has antimicrobial properties and can be used to enhance the immunity of whatever animal or human is consuming it. So, from that angle, it's a major benefit that we have over other sources of protein. Also, our insect has a tremendous amount of digestible calcium in it. I'll just give you an example. If you want to take in calcium, right, you won't eat chalk. You would drink milk. You would have dairy products. You would have spinach or say other fruits and vegetables, because the calcium has to be digestible in nature. It's not just about the compound. It's about what you give to the animals. Currently, animals are given calcium carbonate stones. So you can guess it yourself. They are being fed stones. So yes, there would be little digestibility of the calcium from these. But then ultimately, if any animal or say any living organism is eating stones, it would have digestibility issues with the other products. Now, in the poultry industry, only 75% of the feed is digested, 25% gets wasted. And like it can be solved if we say remove the calcium carbonate from the equation, put in digestible calcium into the feeds. So that is the second benefit that we have. Thirdly, insects have that smell which intrigues animal. So even with humans, we taste with our sense of smell. Whenever we are ill, our sense of smell reduces, and that is why we are not feeling like eating the food. Now, something similar happens with the animals. Once they get that insect-like smell from the product, from the feed that it is eating, it is bound to eat more, it is bound to digest it better, and it also improves their behavior.
Right. Ankit, you were talking about this, having a great potential even in the pet market. Leave alone commercial fish farming or poultry. How does that market work? And is there? Don't you encounter a little bit of stigma in India when it comes to pet food or animal food that contains insects?
Yes, the stigma is bound to come. We are a primarily vegetarian country.
But even for non-vegetarians, looking at insects as a source of nutrition that may eventually end up in the human food chain as well, does it sort of freak people out?
Yeah, it does. It does. Like especially people like above our generation. So my parents' generation, definitely they would freak them out. But say consider our generation, like millennials, right? People below 30, 35 years of age. They are very adventurous. They are not following a lot of religious practices. I am a first generation meat eater in my family. We are a primarily vegetarian family. But like in India, we have all of these practices primarily due to our religious beliefs. People are now experimenting a lot with their food. Like I'll give you like a small example, right? So like 70% of the people who enter our factory end up say consuming our insect protein as well, just to give it a try. And it has
what you feed them what sauteed soldier fly larvae?
Not yet. But we like it's the protein powder that we have, right?
Okay.
It's very similar to whey protein. And like if you think it from a practical perspective, from a rational perspective,
right?
So like they end up trying it, and it tastes peanutty. Okay. I eat it always, okay. Like whenever I have to demonstrate. So like that stigma is there, but that stigma was there for mushrooms as well. Consider the time of 1990. The Hindi name for mushroom is kukurmutta. So like a place where dog urinates, that's where mushrooms grow. So right. Like if you call it kukurmutta, the stigma increases. If you call it mushroom, the stigma decreases significantly. If you call it a fungus, people won't have considered it. So it's about the narrative that you create. And that is why we are targeting insect protein into the food chain indirectly first and directly later. So like it would come with a lot of awareness and education, getting those licenses, right? Say, for example, if I put forward a product in front of you that I am eating, then you have some kind of confidence. If I put forward a product in front of you that I am eating, plus it has an FSSAI license, then your confidence increases that yes. Then you have lab reports to prove that it is actually beneficial for your health. So the narrative can be changed. Yes, the stigma is there today.
Right. Tell us about, where are you in terms of scale of farming insects right now? Do you supply to some of the big animal feed makers? And what has been the reaction of the industry to something like this?
So There's a mixed reaction from the industry, and it depends on their level of awareness, because this thing has not started in India. It has eventually come to India.
It's not an alien concept in the West.
Yeah, exactly. So if you track this industry, 2015 there was nothing. Companies have just started. They completed their R&D. So I would call India 5 years behind in that perspective. And Westerners are more picky in terms of food hygiene, in terms of consuming insects in comparison to Indians. In India, there are tribes in India who are consuming insects and is a staple part of their diets. But coming back to your question of the scales, so we are currently using close to a ton of food waste or rejects from two industries, which is the bread industry and the beer industry, on a weekly basis.
Ton a day?
No, ton a week. We are getting 500 kgs of bread, 500 kgs of spent grains from microbreweries in Bangalore, and we are converting it into insects. We can produce close to 5 to 8 kgs of protein on a daily basis, and close to 2 to 3 kgs of fat oil on a daily basis as of now. Now we plan to scale to close to 20,000 kgs of these byproducts being used on a daily basis. So I hope that surfaces in 6 to 9 months time.
So would it be fair to say that you've been at the proof of concept stage so far, and now is when you're looking to scale it up big time?
Correct. So last 2.5 years has been the proof of concept stage, where we were mastering the biology of the fly, understanding their behaviors, what actually helps them grow, what kind of substrates can be used, how do you pre-treat the substrates so that it is efficient for the larvae to actually feed on them, the way you can convert these larvae into a protein concentrate and the fat oil. So there were tons of nuances from the life sciences and the biotechnology perspective that was supposed to be proven, and we have done that. And now we are ready to scale.
What has been the reaction of the industry? I asked you before. What are they saying? Are they enthusiastic about incorporating something like this as part of their animal feed diet?
Yeah. So the concerns from two different parts of the industry. So I'll consider pet food companies separately, and I'll consider animal feed companies separately. Right. Animal feed industry is a very commodity market driven industry. So pricing becomes the most important part. The quality, the consistency in the quality, and the volumes. These are the four concerns that most of the feed manufacturers have in India. With insect protein, their primary concern is the scale. So it's a very nascent industry. It becomes like a chicken egg problem. If I be very honest, that I tell them that if you won't try it, then you won't be getting confident on the quality, on what you can achieve with the help of insect protein in your formulations. Their perspective is if there is no enough scale, what do we do by trying it out? Right. So it becomes like a challenge from that perspective, where people are questioning the scale, and they are right to do so. Nobody has demonstrated it in India. We are amongst the pioneers in India doing it. And there are concepts in the West and say in the Southeast Asia region as well, where people are developing insect protein at scales. So our perspective to them is India has tons and tons of raw materials that we need. These insects are very social and can be grown in an agrarian country like India. And we are at the stage where we can actually produce tons and tons of insect protein that you need. There are 350 odd animal feed companies in India, and it is generally a longer cycle to convert a client. You first need to do lab trials, prove your product, then you do a commercial pond trial, which takes into account the abiotic factors or the environmental factors. Then you do a commercial farm trial in 2 of the seasons, because maybe summers can affect something, winters can affect some other thing. Then you get fixed as a vendor, right? So the journey is there. So it is a 1.5 years journey to get approved as a vendor for any feed company. And they won't share the results with you, mind you. They won't share the results with you. They'll keep the formulations to themselves. What our pitch to them is, if you're like, it's about these 3, 4, 5 companies, who would be pioneers in the space and who would be consuming all of our insect protein. Now, if you are left behind, you are left behind, because our production would go to them, because they started early working with us, developing that relationship. And everybody is going to face a crunch of soya meal availability and fish meal availability. So what do you do then? Like, can you stagnate your production? Can you stagnate your growth? So that's what our pitch to them is. In terms of pet food companies, it's not about the cost. It's about the value it brings to the table. So insect protein can help in a faster growth in puppies because it has a lot of digestible calcium in it, which supports bone growth and cartilage growth. It can help with old dogs, like facing problems like dementia, because old dogs tend to forget, and then it creates a lot of problem. And people are connected to their pets. Nobody likes to call themselves a pet owner. They like to call themselves a pet parent. Now that is the behavior shift that has come up. So people are more concerned about their dog's food than their own food. So if a dog is facing, say, a hip problem, or say a problem with the brain, then insect protein can actually help it solve. In terms of the digestibility, it is better than chicken or say meat, which are heavier animal-based proteins. It takes a lot of time to consume it. So a leaner animal source of protein is something that only insects can offer.
Right. Ankit, what does an insect farm look like? Are these like any other poly houses with the food waste as the substrate or the medium on which the insects grow?
It actually looks it looks very different, because like we have a vertical indoors farm. Like we stack trays on top of each other. Like it's a very precision agriculture kind of game that we are trying to play. Little bit here and there, the insects won't grow. Either we won't be able to harvest them, or the quality would be lesser, or the ash content would increase. So it's a major precision agriculture game. You need to control the parameters or the growing conditions that you give to the insects. How much feed should be given to how many insects in what season? What should be the refeeding frequency that you need to set up? So we feed them thrice in 10 days time, different amounts of substrates. So you can imagine the number of experiments that we have done for a particular substrate to set up this entire facility. So it would look like a very high-tech facility in comparison to, say, the conventional agriculture that we are prone to see.
Right. And how does it smell inside the farm?
It won't smell much. It won't smell much. So we have done we have developed a technology to actually reduce the smell as well. We are in the middle of city, so we are doing it in Bangalore. And we are not exactly outside the city. Most composting units are 50 to 100 kilometers outside the city. Most biogas plants are outside the city because of the stink. We are inside the city. I stay 1 kilometer away from my unit. And we haven't received any complaints so far, because the technology is there.
No protesting neighbors as yet.
No, and our facility is situated near farmlands. And you know how freaked out farmers are the moment they see any kinds of insects.
Right.
So like most of the research that goes on in India is to kill insects, not to grow insects. Right. So like taking their confidence is a validation in itself.
Right. Ankit, thanks a lot for joining us on Field Notes today. Until we meet next week, goodbye and God bless.
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you for having me.